Unity 6 introduced behavior graphs. This is a system that is node-based to determine how non-player character will behave, and such as, for example, following and attacking a player. It's new. I haven't tried it out. And on Unity Learn, I did not find a series of tutorials. However, on YouTube, I did find from Sunny Valley Studio a 3-part tutorial on using the behavior graph. I only did the first one, so I need to dig in deeper. So what I'm going to show is the old way, or, well, it's not old because it still works, of setting up a non-player character to follow and attack the player. So this is an earlier project that I used for waypoints and for the nav mesh agent. And it just has this one character, the mannequin from Mixamo. So we'll go ahead and pull that out. And I'll call this follow NPC. I turned off the previous ones and in my tests to setting this up. And let's see, I'm going to go to assets, and in the scripts folder, I have a follow script. It's very simple, very short. It captures, it has a public variable to set what game object it should follow. In this case, it'll be the player or the player capsule, to be more specific. And it captures its transform, so where it's located on the XYZ coordinates, and then follows the player character. The chase one is a little bit more involved because it has a series. It determines the distance. First, it's set up with an animation controller that has 3 Boolean variables or properties. 3 Boolean properties: is idle, is walking, is attacking. And this is set up for a non-player character that is just kind of standing around, idling. When the player gets to a proximity that you can set in the script, the non-player character will begin following the player. And if it gets closer to another proximity, it will then attack the player. So I'm going to put both of these together in slightly different ways for the sake of demonstration. So I'm going to place I'm going to use the same 3D figure. Let's see. I'm just placing it somewhere where I can see it as soon as the project starts. And I'm going to turn it around. Okay, so I'm going to add a few components to make sure that number one, doesn't just float in the air. So I'm going to add rigid body. That component introduces Unity's physics system and gravity. So the character, I have it on 3 at the Y coordinates. So it's initially up in the air and it'll land. And I'm going to add a capsule collider. I could use a box collider. I could use other colliders, but I'll just go with the capsule collider for this example. You'll notice that in this, I've spoken about before, that capsule colliders can be used to trigger events if you turn on the isTrigger. So in that case, you'd want to have 2 different capsule colliders. One that is just to make sure that it doesn't fall through floors or it doesn't walk through walls. So then you would add another collider to make sure that it can have trigger events and react to other things. So we'll leave that. And next, I'll add an animator. Not an animation, but an animator. So the animator is kind of a state machine that determines what animations will be used, when they might be used, based on the properties that you add and the script that you add. I have in my assets an animations folder that has both the animations that are little triangles. If I double click on those, it will open a timeline with many keyframes. These animations were imported from Mixamo. And in this case, I'm just going to have it walking. So I'm going to use the walk animation. I already have an animation controller set for walking, but I'll go ahead and create a new one. So in my assets folder and animations, I'll go ahead and go to create animator controller, call it walk, follow. I tend to use _anim for my controllers. There is no naming convention that I know of, so I don't need to do this. In this case, since I already have a few duplicates of this from walking through this before, I'll leave it as walk follow and open it. This opens up the animator panel. And by default, let's see. Okay, here's an empty one. There was already one of the other controllers. With what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to add this walking animation. So upon when the animator controller is called, immediately it'll go to a walking animation. And if I'm going to double click this to go to the inspector for this animation. And by default, the loop time and loop pose are not checked off. I checked those off previously. Loop time so that it loops, and loop pose so that it loops seamlessly. So I'll go back to my follow NPC, and where it asks for the controller, I will add my new controller, walk follow. Okay, now the last thing it needs, this is just a very basic, actually before I do that, I just remembered that the capsule collider by default is at the feet of the character of the model. I'm going to zoom in here, and I want it to be the height of the character, which is 2. And then on the Y coordinate at the center, which is going to be 1. And that's better. Now, I need it to go somewhere. So in this case, I want it to walk to the player. I'm going to save this and just take a look at what it looks like at this point. Okay, so it just walks in place. If I switch over to the game, I can walk to it, nothing happens. So I prefer it rather than just walking in place, have it follow the player. So I'll add another component to add the follow script. So you're going to need a script no matter, if you want the NPCs to move about your environment, you need a script, whether it's moving from one waypoint through a series of waypoints and looping or patrolling through a series of waypoints, or in this case, following the player. So where it says player, the transform, what transforms it should capture. I nested the Unity starter package for first person controller inside this player rig. But what I need is not just that, it's not the whole encapsulated series of game objects, but the player capsule. So I'm going to drag that into the XYZ, the transforms that it needs in order to go somewhere. So I'll test it. Oh, and it immediately starts following me. I can change the speed of it. If I turn around, it should be, yep, there it is, just following me along. I try to run away, it continues following. Still there. All right. So very simple script. Maybe one of you will take a look at it and see if you can fix that jitter. So all the scripts are in the GitHub account that I shared. So I go to scripts. It's this follow one. It's very short. And let me close a few things here. This is the script here. So public transform player, that's where you can drop in and it captures, uses vector3 to capture the distance. You can set, you could make the distance smaller, so it's just idling longer until you get closer. You can have it not get up so close to you. I'll change this to 5 and save it. And now it should follow at a further distance. I'll test this. Okay, so that's as close as it gets. Unless, of course, I walk up to it. It's following me, but at a distance, I hit a wall. And if I had greater speed, I could run away from it and it would just walk in place, maybe. Okay, I'll pause that. Now, the second one is going to be similar, but with a different script. So I'm going to add and use the same character. Again, make sure I can see it and it's above ground. And this time I'll call it attack, or we'll say enemy, NPC. 3 on the Y and move it adjacent to the other one, and once again, turn it around. Okay, so this time I'll try using a mesh collider, see how that goes. Which mesh collider? The one that came with this character, which is chapter 36 labeled from Mixamo. And I'm going to add, once again, an animator controller. And I'll rebuild. So I have a series of animations, break off anim, and idle, and walking. And I'm going to use these three together. So once again, I'll create a new animator controller. And I'll call it something else. Let's call it walk attack. And then open that up. This time I'm going to add parameters. And so I will begin with, I'll have it idle, start with idling, and I will add a walk to it. Walking animation. And then I'm going to use this break off anim instead of attacking, just because this one likes to settle things through dance. So I want to make transitions through these different animations. So I'm going to right click on the first one, the idle, and bring a transition down to walking. I'm going to right click on walking and make a transition to break off anim, and then make a transition back to idle. And I'll do the same in the reverse. So make a transition to break off to walking, and walking to idle. Okay, so it can loop another direction. It can go from idling to walking, but it can also go directly idle to breaking. And what I'm going to use as parameters are three different Boolean. That means that they're either true or false, is idle. And this is how the script that I'm using is set up. It's set up to work with these specific parameters. Okay. Now, when I apply these parameters, is through the transitions. So when I click on a transition, you can see that there's a set of conditions, possible conditions. The list is empty. So I'm going to add is walking. And then for walking to idle is idle. And they're Boolean, so it's just true or false. Is walking to break off. I'll use is attacking. And is walking. We'll go from breakdancing back to walking. Idle to attacking. Is attacking is true. And from attack to idle is true. Since it's the first one that I listed, it comes up right away without me having to use the drop down. Okay, so this is a series of animations that will transition from one to the other based on these Boolean parameters that have been set up in this chase script. At the top of the script, I included links to the tutorials that I use to assemble these scripts. And so you can see what it will grab the player again and use vector3 distance to track the distance of the player, as well as how wide of an angle. So the player could sneak behind this idling NPC and it wouldn't move. You have to get around this 40-degree area for the NPC to see you. And here, if direction magnitude is less than 5, becomes true. So it starts walking toward you. Attacking is false. If the distance is 2.5, then attacking is true and it's no longer false. So these are triggering the transitions in the animator controller. And this will reset finally, resets it to idle if the distance is more than 10. So is idle is true, is attacking is false, is walking is false. All right, so I'm gonna add the animator controller to this character. So here in the controller field, let's see, walk attack anim. I think that's the latest one that I did. Okay. And I'll add a component, which is chase, is the script that I'm using. What is it going to chase? The player capsule. That's the transforms that it's gonna follow. And let's see if it works. So let's go to the game version. Okay, it's walking in the air. I got close to it. It's breakdancing. I'm gonna walk away from it. And it's not. Oh. Okay. So I'm seeing a few things that I need to fix. Number one, I did not add the rigid body. So any enemy NPC is missing its rigid body. So I could do a couple of things. This project uses a nav mesh. So instead of a rigid body, I could use a nav mesh agent. So I'll go ahead and add that. Although it doesn't use a rigid body, something's keeping it in the air instead of falling to the ground. Well, of course, the missing rigid body. I'm going to see what it looks like if I add the nav mesh agent. And I like this. It's a specific order that works in my head. I don't think it matters as far as Unity cares, but I'm going to have this be after the even before the animator. Okay. Collapse these. Let's see what happens now. There's still one other thing that one other adjustment that I need to do. See if it works. Okay. Okay, it's breakdancing now on the floor. So it does go down to the floor. So one thing that I don't like about it is that I walk away and it's still dancing. So I could be walking away and it would still be like slashing, attacking. I'm going to turn off the follow one just to show one. So this is in the animation controller. I want there to not be an exit time. So has exit time means that whatever animation it started, it'll play all the way through. So I'm going to turn off has exit time on all these transitions so that the transition occurs immediately. All right, I'm going to save it and test it one more time. So I don't have the game on focus, so I'm seeing the character walking. All right, I'm gonna walk to it. It's dancing. I'm gonna run away from it. And this time it no longer plays through the animation. It immediately stops. If I walk beyond, we'll say 10 meters, it idles. Again, the values are up to you what you want to use. I use meters in Unity just to help me think about distance. So I'm going to walk up to it. It should start walking toward me. And then if I walk further to attack, it immediately goes into dancing. I walk away from it and it now starts following me again. I walk away and it idles. All right, so that's what I was looking for. And it's doing what I'd like. And there's some basic non-player character interactivity. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.